Predicting who, what, where, when, and why someone will sustain an athletic injury is an extremely daunting task. In this video, what I'm going to do, hopefully, is try to explain this as simply as I can, give a few real-life examples, and stick around to the end as I have a fun announcement, so stay tuned. Now, unless you have a crystal ball hanging around your closet, you will never predict 100% of injuries. However, this has not stopped researchers in the past, for the last couple of decades anyways, from trying to develop injury etiology models. And what these models aim to do is to highlight all the different factors that contribute to the causal mechanism of athletic injuries. One of the more recent models that was developed is by Windt and Tim Gabbett in a 2017 paper, which I'll link below. It's called the workload injury etiology model. I know it looks a tad confusing, but stick with me, we'll try to break this down as easily as we can. Now on the bottom left we have something called our predisposed athlete. This is essentially your athletic profile. Your profile is a combination of three main factors: injury history, modifiable factors, and non-modifiable factors. So injury history is essentially your baggage, all the injuries that you've had in the past and how they all interplay with each other. Non-modifiable factors such as your age, your height, all those things that you cannot change about yourself, and modifiable factors. So this is your aerobic capacity, your neuromuscular control, otherwise known as your technique. It's just a fancy way of saying technique. Your tissue resiliency, how strong you are, all those different things. Two of these things you cannot change. Your history, you can't change your history unless you have a time machine, and your non-modifiable factors. You can't change how old you are, you can't change how long your limbs are. Like for myself, my limbs are fairly long and lengthy, so I would not make a good power lifter by any means because I have very poor leverage overall. But what is really good is your modifiable factors. Now, these are things that we can modify in order to boost our profile. So these three things combine and they form your internal risk factors. So everything that is personal to you personally, hence your profile. Next, we get our external risk factors, and part of this is the application of your workload. So workload meaning all the training that you do, the sports that you play, that stuff that you're applying to your body. So those are your extrinsic factors, things that are outside of yourself. Another way that you can think about application of workload is your programming. Are you following a good training program? And if you are, you will get a positive training effect. So this is your fitness. So we go up in the graph here, we have a positive training effect, and that feeds into your modifiable factors in a good way. So we improve tissue resiliency, we improve neuromuscular control, so on and so forth, and that affects your profile again in a good way. Now, if we overtrain, for instance, or undertrain even, this will negatively affect your fitness, and we might call that fatigue. That also will in turn affect your modifiable risk factors, not in a good way, in a poor way, so that will negatively impact your profile. Now, not everybody will sustain injury, and to get an injury, you need to have something called an inciting event. If you're playing on the field, for instance, playing sports, and you collide with another player, for instance, that's going to be an inciting event, because you might get too much load applied to a particular part of your body, and if we get too much load to a certain part of the body, then that's when injuries happen. If we break it down to its simplest form, a tissue will get injured if load applied to that tissue exceeds the capacity of that tissue to bear that load. Now, what does that mean exactly? So let's say we have a rubber band here. So this rubber band can have a decent amount of load, for instance, applied to it. So, I might be able to hang 1 pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds on here, and it's fine, it's not damaged at all. But if I start to apply a lot more load, then it's going to exceed the capacity of that tissue to bear that load and get injured. Okay, so now we understand that if we experience too much load to a tissue, that tissue will be damaged, and that's what an injury is. Now, how can we avoid having too much load on a tissue? Two main things, I would argue. One is your neuromuscular control, which is a fancy way of saying technique, and the amount of load. And this would be part of your programming. So technique and programming. And when I say technique, I'm talking about your exercise technique that you are performing. So let's take, for instance, a deadlift. We all know a deadlift should be performed with a neutral spine because that is a optimal technique. Because if we tend to curve at the low back and go into a bit of a hunched position, this can put a lot more load onto your intervertebral discs and can subsequently get an injury that way. Because by having a flat back or a neutral spine, we're able to distribute the load of the barbell across a wider area. But if we break and we have a flexed spine, then all that load is going to be concentrated on that one spot that's hinging. And that is when injury will happen. So we have a pencil. So, you know, when you're doing a deadlift, you want to have a nice neutral spine. If we curve at a certain part, then all that load is going to go to that area and we'll get injured. Like breaking all of my office supplies. So bad technique will put you at risk for sustaining an injury. Now, if the barbell for the deadlift example was a lot lighter, then maybe they would have been okay and not sustain an injury because the barbell is light enough that you're able to bend your back and have poorer form and afford to have poorer form and still be able to not sustain an injury. But it's always better to have optimal technique because that load will be distributed throughout a larger portion of your body and be a lot safer for your body. So load distribution matters. So for instance, if I step on your foot while wearing my Nikes, it's gonna maybe hurt a little bit, but you know, not a big deal. However, if I'm wearing my wife's high heels and I step on your foot, it's going to hurt. Why? Because my body weight is now concentrated onto a very small spot versus over a larger area. Let's say, for instance, my daughter, who weighs about 30 pounds right now, because she's, you know, still an infant, if she were to wear her shoes and step on my foot, it's not gonna hurt. If she were to wear high heels for a reason and step on my foot, it still might not hurt very much because she weighs a lot less than I do. So that would be kind of your programming, so to speak, in this example. The body weight is the programming, how much load you have, and the shoes is the technique and is the way you're distributing that load across your body. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. It makes sense in my head. So by addressing technique and programming, we're able to mitigate injury a lot. Now to sum this up, if we have poor technique and poor programming, we will have the highest risk of injury. If we have poor technique but good programming, we might have a moderate risk of injury. If we have good technique but poor programming, again, we might still have a moderate amount of risk for injury. But if we have ideal and good programming and we have good technique, then this will lead to the least amount of risk for injury. Now this concept doesn't just apply for exercise and training and sports. It can apply to everyday life as well. Let's say, for instance, you have your regular office worker and, you know, they have very poor typing techniques. So, you know, they're typing like they're an extra in the Thriller music video. All right, so that's your bad technique. Now, for programming, again, if you're typing 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks out of the year, 7 years straight, that's bad programming. However, if you're able to correct your technique, get your desk set up well for you, and you're programming well, meaning that you're taking frequent breaks from sitting down and typing, so every 20-30 minutes or so, that'll definitely decrease your risk of getting like carpal tunnel syndrome in your wrists. All right, I realize this is mainly a kettlebell sport focused channel, so what we'll do, we'll head into the garage and we'll go over a kettlebell sports specific example. All right, so here we are in the garage gym. We're gonna have my friend Wayne come out here and help demo for us. So Wayne, you wanna come on out? Who? Excellent, great to have you here, Wayne. So Wayne, what I want you to do is grab that 16 kilogram kettlebell and press it overhead. Okay, no worries. So as you can see, Wayne has some great technique going on here. Nice straight line overhead, beautiful. Wayne, how does that feel? Feels really good, man. Excellent. All right, now let's imagine that Wayne has poor shoulder mobility, so he needs to now compensate with thoracolumbar extension. Wayne, do you want to demo that for us, please? I guess so, like, kind of like that. All right, so you can see now he's arching at the back. Wayne, how does this feel? Not great, but you know, light enough that I can do it without hurting myself, but perfect still. Excellent. So that was our demo with good and bad technique with a fairly low load. Now Wayne, do you want to grab the 32 kilogram kettlebell for me, please? This one? Yep, and just press it right on overhead. Ah, gosh, okay. So you can see here, beautiful technique, nice straight line. Now, let's demo with the bad technique. Say what? Yeah, no, we're not doing that. Wait, seriously, you need to do this, okay? It's for the video. I don't care if it's for the video, I'm gone. Wait. No, where are you going? Wayne! Bye! Wayne! Now we agreed on. You know what? No. Wayne! Wayne! Yeah, okay, he's gone. Alright, so we're just gonna go back upstairs. Yeah, sorry about him downstairs there. They just didn't want to, cooperate fully. Anyways, this leads me to my last part of this video is my announcement. So I am happy to finally introduce a online coaching service. Now, I've been working on this for quite some time because this really truly means a lot to me. Injury prevention is the name of the game for me, and honestly, being hurt from kettlebell sport, literally, I hurt my back from kettlebell sport back in 2008, and it is the reason I'm a healthcare professional today, was because going through that injury and not being able to compete and being surrounded by my friends again, that really hurts. Physically, it hurt. Emotionally, it hurt. So this really does mean a lot to me, and to prevent other people from sustaining injury, especially from kettlebell sport, really is a true passion of mine. So this is why I'm really excited for this particular project, and I've worked quite hard on this too. So basically how this works is I send you a list of movements and exercises for you to perform in front of a camera, then you send it back to me and I analyze it. Now, based on my analysis, you have 3 options. This is how it is right now, recording, in May 2019. So this might change in the future if you're watching this later on, but this is how it's set up right now. So if you want the first package where it's literally just the facts. So I assess your movement, I say this is good, this is bad, you take it and you interpret it how you like. So you might look at that and say, okay, so now I need to fix XYZ. I'll bring this back to my coach and have him or her look at it and come up with a game plan together. So that's the first option. The second option is we do that same analysis, but we can also get on a 30-minute Skype call and we communicate back and forth, and I give you my recommendations and advice on how to correct your technique. Because having a correct technique, like I mentioned in this video several times, will help to mitigate the risk of sustaining an injury. So again, this is a good option for you as well if you have a coach that's offering you programming but maybe is not overly involved with the quality aspect of your lifting, then this can be an option for you. And the third option that I'm offering right now is The Works. It's kind of an all-around program for you. So we get the technique portion taken care of with the movement analysis, the Skype call, debriefing, going over recommendations, all that good stuff. And we're also getting the programming side of things. So we actually go over proper kettlebell sport programming, and I write you a program that's updated every week. We communicate on email every week. Every month, what we'll do is actually redo our movement analysis so we can monitor you to see how you're improving month after month, which is a good thing. Obviously, you want to reevaluate, make sure things are working. That last one is, in my opinion, the best way to prevent injuries in kettlebell sport. We're not going to prevent 100% of injuries. That's impossible unless you have a crystal ball. If you do, give me a call. I'll buy it from you. But for those of us mere mortals who do not possess the knowledge of the future, this is the best way to mitigate the risk of sustaining an injury via kettlebell sport, is by having proper programming and making sure your technique is on point. So if you're interested in something like this, go to my website, drericst.com/online training. The link is down below as well. Now, if you have a comment based on anything I mentioned earlier in this video, or a question about anything I mentioned in this video, or about my new service, please feel free to leave it below. Or if you prefer to send me a personal email, you can send it to eric@drericst-onge.com. And you know what? Just for maybe the next week or two, we're gonna have a special introductory price. Now, this price is going to go up after next week, so you do not want to delay this because it'll never be this low ever again. I can promise you that. So make sure you sign up right away because it's, you know, it's good for you. Yeah. That's it for me. I am super excited about this particular project, and we will see you next time. Take care. Yeah, it feels great. Ah, man.
Too late.
Hello.